Welcome to the Retreat Radio, where we go beyond temporary fixes and surface-level symptom management. Here, we dig into the real root causes behind your symptoms so that you can understand your body, advocate for your health, and ask the right questions. I'm Heather Witt, physician assistant and owner of the Retreat Wellness and Aesthetics. This podcast sits at the intersection of aesthetics, longevity, and functional medicine, and you'll get information without the sugarcoating, the trends, or the nonsense fluff. Let's get into it. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast today. We're going to do things a little bit different. I have a little guest with me today. I don't know if any of you remember Val, but she used to work with us. She was our social media and marketing manager. She took some time off to have the cutest little baby boy ever. And the stars have aligned again, and she's back with us. So everybody give a warm welcome to Val.
Hi everyone, it feels so good to be back, and I'm super excited to work alongside Heather and everyone else here, but more importantly, I am trying to learn more about wellness today.
Yes, so since Val has been with us, we have added on the whole wellness and functional medicine side of the practice. So I was kind of building it for about a year behind the scenes, and then we launched it back in January of 2025. So now that she's here, she's a pro with everything aesthetics, but we're just trying to get her up to date on all the functional medicine options and how we operate with that. So we figured while I'm kind of giving her a little overview and training on it today that we just recorded and bring it all to you guys as well. So we hope you guys enjoy.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool because I want to come in the perspective as you listeners. So I'll be asking a ton of questions that hopefully will give you guys some answers as well.
Okay, great. Let's jump right in.
All right, so let's just get this started. My first question is, coming back to the retreat, I feel like the term wellness is very broad and I'm really unsure about what it entails. Could you give me like an overall description of everything that it encompasses?
That's actually a really great question. And I think that wellness can mean something different to a lot of different people. So you take something as simple as, an IV clinic and all they're doing is IVs, like they will call themselves wellness. Or there's a lot of wellness clinics popping up that are cryotherapy and cold plunge and sauna. We I would say, are more on that functional medicine realm. So we do all of we do the IVs, we do the vitamin shots, but we really do full encompassed, like inner body wellness. So we're doing hormone optimization, we're doing peptides, we're also doing weight loss programs. And I like to say weight loss programs because weight loss does not always mean a GLP-1. We do a lot of specialized testing, we do cancer screenings, we do sexual wellness, we do gut health. It's kind of, I would say, a mix between westernized medicine and Eastern medicine into treating the body as a whole. And our whole goal is to treat the root cause. So we're not trying to put Band-Aids on symptoms or make you temporarily feel better. We're trying to get to the root of what's actually going on to fix it from the start to provide a more long-lasting result.
Oh, wow. So that all sounds really interesting. And there were a lot of details in there. If you were just to summarize all of that in just a short paragraph or one sentence, how would you say it to someone?
I would say, I'm going to say it from the perspective of what we do here at the retreat, which is really what I always say is full functional medicine. I would say that it's a root cause approach to healthcare, so more medical things, and it looks beyond symptoms. And we look at how genetics, lifestyle, environment, physiology, and how all of those interact to influence your long-term health and helping to prevent disease.
Oh, okay. I got you now. That makes a lot of sense. So in a way, basically, you were able to master how to make a person even more beautiful on the outside. But then you brought this side along because you wanted to focus more on the inside.
Exactly. Because, I started in aesthetics, and what I was finding was my own case study of, I feel so great on the outside. I look like I'm in my late 20s, but I'm starting to feel like I am approaching 40 as I am. And I never used to feel like that. And all my patients were feeling that way. So I wanted to bring in something that would help to basically anti-age you on the inside as well, but do it in a more non-traditional way than what you can get through your general, primary practitioner that sees you for 5 minutes and doesn't really understand what's going on with your case.
Gotcha. Wow, I
Yeah.
really love that, Heather.
Yeah. And it's really important too, like I said, like that's why for me, wellness really means functional medicine. So it really means the whole thing. You can't just give someone some testosterone and expect that they're going to feel better. You can't just give someone BPC 157 peptide and think miraculously it's this magic drug. There are so many things that are all encompassed in this that you really have to approach this from a multimodality standpoint in order to get to the bottom of it, which is why I felt like we needed to be able to treat all of these things instead of just, well, here's this one peptide or here's this one GLP and like, bye-bye, you're going to feel better.
I see.
Yeah.
All right. So I do have a better understanding now of the whole definition of wellness. This is actually a question that I was trying to ask Britt and Marissa yesterday. What is a peptide?
Oh, I love peptides. Peptides are little magical, we do not like to say anything is like a magical drug, but like peptides are really amazing in what they can do for the human body. Peptides are short chains of amino acids. Proteins are long chains of amino acids. So they're kind of semi-related. Peptides are naturally occurring things inside the human body, and we have found ways to localize these and be able to like bottle them up to use as an injectable, sometimes as a pill as well, for us to take exogenously. So for us to be able to take to get more effects. A lot of people's peptide production goes down as they age, or they just don't make as much of it, or if they're going through something, they just need more of it to make more of an effect. So peptides are short chain amino acids that will go in and perform different tasks. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of peptides out there. We have only been able to find and reproduce a very small fraction of them. Peptides are hard because they don't all do the same thing. So we have peptides like BPC 157 and TB4 that are really great for anti-inflammatory effects and healing effects, like musculoskeletal healing effects. We have peptides like GHK copper that are really great for anti-aging and hair, skin, and nails. We have semaglutide. That is actually a peptide. Insulin. Did you know that insulin is a peptide?
Oh, nope, Did not know that.
What are some other popular ones? CJC ipamorelin. Those are growth hormone peptides. So they stimulate our own body to produce more growth hormone to help with muscle growth. We have thymosin alpha. So that's like an immune peptide. So that helps boost our immune system. There's just so many of them out there that have different jobs. So when we're trying to treat somebody and let's say they have an injury, something like a BPC and TB4 combo could be something really great to help to supercharge that. I always like to tell people though that just because you go on a peptide doesn't mean you're going to magically see results. If your hormones are not optimized, if your body is significantly inflamed, if you are under high stress and your cortisol is through the roof, these peptides are not going to work as well as if the rest of your body is optimized. So it's a piece to the puzzle.
You mentioned weight loss programs, which is what I'm particularly interested in, especially since, like you said, I just have my son. So I definitely want to get rid of some of this leftover mommy weight. Yep. So can you give me more information about the weight loss programs and how you personalize it and cater it to every single patient?
Of course, yeah. So this is where I really feel passionate and where we are a lot different from a lot of other clinics and definitely different from a lot of those online platforms. So traditionally, when you think of weight loss, what first comes to mind?
I personally think of going to the gym, crazy diets, and sometimes these like diet fads, trends. For example, like diet pills or like some tea that some influencers broadcasting.
yeah, influencers. And I feel like the new IT pill is actually an injectable and it's semaglutide. Ozempic, tirzepatide, GLP-1s. Like this is what we're using this day and age. And although I think that these medications are great, where we shine, I feel, is again, we're not just giving you this medication and like sending you out the door. We're doing a further investigation. So long before we even start our weight loss programs, which we'll touch on this more later, is hormone optimization, which is our other big facet here. So we require a full blood panel before we start any program, because again, there are so many other things that go into weight loss besides just let me take this miracle drug. So if your hormones are off, if your thyroid is off, sometimes even just if your B12 is too low, these types of things can make it harder to lose weight even when you're doing all the right things. So we take that blood work, we take your history, we take your lifestyle, because for some people it's not feasible for them to go to the gym 6 days a week.
Yeah,
right?
especially like being a new mom, absolutely not.
Yeah, I just had a patient the other day who he travels a ton for work. So him eating these healthy, balanced meals all the time and being able to get to the gym, it's really hard for him. So we have to think of creative ways to make the program work for you. So we include lifestyle things, we include like nutrition coaching, workout coaching. The majority of our patients, yes, we do end up placing them on a GLP-1. Typically here we start with semaglutide. I think that the way that we titrate our program, some of those more expensive GLPs just aren't necessary in the beginning. I think that our patients are losing a great amount of weight and they're doing it slowly enough that they're not having nausea, they're not having constipation, and they're not losing too much muscle, which is a big thing. We usually start people on semaglutide and we titrate the dose very slowly, and it's very customized for each person. So it's not a cookie cutter dose. We also use a device called the InBody. So the InBody is a device that not only measures your weight, but it measures your whole body composition along with it. So it's going to measure how much fat do you have, how much muscle do you have, water weight. It looks at visceral fat. It even can compare like limb to limb. So how's your right arm compared to your left arm? Because the big thing is if you come in here and you've lost 20 pounds, that's great. But if you've lost 15 pounds of muscle and only 5 pounds of fat, I have a problem with that. Because now you're losing muscle. When you lose muscle, you lose more of that ability to burn fat and to keep your metabolic health intact. And so if you ever were to go off of this or start decreasing it, you are going to rebound and gain weight at an alarming rate, which is not our goal. We're not here to give you a temporary fix, take your money and be like, too bad, what happens later? We want to make sure that 5 years down the road, you're still healthy and you're keeping the weight off. So we are very strict here in that if you are losing too much muscle, we will hold your prescription until, as we say, you can semaglutide appropriately. But we help you with this. In all of our programs, we include your labs for the year. We include all of the medication you're going to need for the year, all of your follow-up visits with our providers. We include Perfect Aminos. Perfect Aminos is a amino acid supplement, and it has all of the 11 essential amino acids that we need that our body doesn't always produce in the correct formulation for your body to utilize it at 99% efficiency.
And what do these aminos do?
So they basically, amino acids give you the building blocks you need to make proteins, which then help to build your muscles. And the more muscle building and more muscle you have, the more fat burning ability you have. So when you're on any type of GLP-1, you need to make sure you're getting adequate amounts of protein. And for some people, getting that from your daily food sources can be difficult. What a lot of people don't understand is that if you eat a chicken breast, let's say that has 30 grams of protein, you're not actually getting 30 grams of protein because your body can only utilize certain percentages of it. So for a chicken breast, let's say you can only utilize that at 40%. So whatever 40% of 30 is, what is that? 12. So you're actually only getting 18 grams of protein, right? So Perfect Aminos is a great way to, without adding additional calories, to get 30 grams of utilizable protein source in your diet.
So you're saying a lot about protein, and I know that there's protein shakes out there or protein powders that you can add into things. That's still different than these aminos.
Yes, and those things are great as well. They're easy, quick fixes. However, they are a lot of times more like synthetic versions, and a lot of people have a lot of digestive issues with a lot of those fake protein sources. So like those protein shakes, protein bars, a lot of people get a lot of GI upset or gas or things like that when they eat too much of it. So we like to try to get it from more natural sources like our diet, and things like the Perfect Aminos is closer to that because that's not actually giving you protein. It's giving you the amino acid building blocks your body needs to make that protein.
All right. So my next question is there different pricing then for all the programs, or is it the same across the board?
Yeah, so this is something that I tell people to look at if they're looking at other clinics or if they're looking at some of these online platforms is you have to take into account the cost. So you have to first of all make sure this is the cost for a vial of medication and then how long is that vial going to last you? Because if it lasts you 10 weeks but it lasts somebody else 2 weeks, you could be getting screwed on your money there. So it's really important that you look at something like that. So here, if you're doing like our regular medical weight loss, it is the same price for everybody because most people are going to eventually titrate up to around max dose. And so the program basically is enough to include all that. We do, however, have microdose programs. So for people who don't need as high of a dose, or for people who really want to do that minimum amount for more just metabolic health, and they don't necessarily want to lose a ton of weight, we have a different pricing tier for that, obviously, because you're not going to need as much medication.
Oh, okay. So will we eventually reach a point where we don't need to use the medication anymore and we just stop?
So most people, yes, they eventually get to their goal weight if they're on a full-fledged weight loss program. So they'll get to their goal weight, and then you don't need to stay on those high doses long term if you have made your lifestyle changes. So this is where the big thing is where, again, this is not a miracle drug where you can just lay on the couch and eat Cheetos all day, take semaglutide and think your life's going to be changed forever. So as long
If
as
only.
I right, I wish. So as long as you have made some of those lifestyle choices, what we normally do is we start to back you off of the semaglutide slowly so we don't like alarm your system. And then this is where some of those other compounds can come in to help. So a big one that we like to use here is low-dose naltrexone. Low-dose naltrexone, it traditionally has been used in addictive medicine, so treatment of addictive issues. And so what that does is it helps to quiet the food noise, which is a big thing that semaglutide can help with without having those other side effects of like all the weight loss and things that the semaglutide has. So as you titrate off of the semaglutide, you start to get that food noise creeping back in. We can use that low-dose naltrexone as a crutch or a tool during the transition period as we titrate you back down. But most of our patients do stay on a low dose semaglutide for very long term, again, for those metabolic effects and general health effects that it can provide in helping to keep your metabolism strong, helping to keep your insulin resistance healthy. So most people don't ever come fully off of it, but they go on like a super, super minuscule dose.
Interesting. And I mean, 'cause this is a fair, like, new discovery with like the whole weight loss.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to say if there are any long-term effects for using it consistently.
So for semaglutide, there are a lot of long-term studies that they've been doing out there. You have to remember that semaglutide has been being used for years for diabetic patients.
Right.
So that's actually what these drugs are. They're diabetic medications. We have just started noticing a side effect of all of these diabetic patients is that they lose these big amounts of weight.
Mm-hmm.
However, because we didn't know a lot about it, they were getting a lot of this, like what we call now Ozempic face or this skinny fat. Have you ever seen someone who loses like 50 pounds and they look like 10 years older?
Yeah.
That's because they lost so much muscle and they burned through the fat way too fast. So we have now learned how to use these drugs appropriately for a weight loss role itself. And the dosage is much different, much lower than what sometimes they're using in these diabetic patients.
So another question I have about semaglutides is you saying you need to make lifestyle changes as well. I'm a new mom. I don't have time to go to the gym. So should I just not go on these semaglutides until I have time to go to the gym?
Not necessarily, but it is a very important piece of doing this because the big thing here, as I always mention to patients, is we need to preserve muscle mass. And if you're not doing that, semaglutide will also eat your muscle mass. And the more muscle that you lose, the less weight loss, good weight loss you will have because it's the less fat you can burn. And this also messes with your metabolic health so that if you go off of the medication later, you're going to crash and you're going to regain it very quickly. I have that issue with a lot of my patients though. Patients don't have time to go to the gym 3-4 times a week, or it's too expensive, or they don't know what to do when they're there, or they don't enjoy going to the gym because people think, oh, well, I just have to go lift weight. And that's not necessarily the case. So you can just start to make small changes. I always tell my patients, even something as small as every night when you get home from work or after dinner, go for a 20-minute walk, but wear a weighted vest when you do it. You can go on Amazon, you can get them for like, I don't know, 25, 30, 35 bucks. And that alone right there can do quite a bit for you. There are really, the key is you need resistance training. So you want something where you're having some type of force that you're resisting against. Mm-hmm. And that does not mean that it just has to be weightlifting. Weightlifting is a very effective way to do this because you're also growing the muscle at the same time. But things like even just having some bands at home, and while you're sitting on the couch, putting the band around your knees and doing some adductor moves, or putting it around your foot and doing some bicep curls, or even just getting like a 5 and a 10-pound weight, like a little dumbbell that you can be doing small things at home. You don't need to be like a professional weightlifter to be successful on semaglutide. You just need to have 2 to 3 times a week of some small increments of something simple like that.
Oh, okay. So that sounds a lot more doable then. So you don't even have to do a physical activity every single day, you're saying?
No. I mean, I would love it if my patients could at least every day go for some, like even a 10-minute walk. Mm-hmm. But I know that even sometimes that is hard. But no, like you also have to be careful of overtraining, which I honestly am likely a culprit of because the gym is my therapy. But if you're overtraining, you're overtaxing your muscles, that actually can create an opposite effect where you're not able to recover properly and it can actually do more damage than good. So really, I usually say about 3 times a week of some type of resistance training is really all you got to get in.
So something else that I've been also very curious about is, I've heard a lot of horror stories about Ozempic. I've even heard about certain countries banning Ozempic. So how can you reassure not just myself, but another patient who is very hesitant to start on our weight loss program?
That's a very loaded question because the weight loss medications and other peptides, it's become a whole issue in the industry right now. And I think that where a lot of those horror stories come from is mistreatment with the drugs. We have to remember at the end of the day, these are drugs. These are prescriptive medications. And we are now seeing bros at the gym sourcing this to people with no medical background, no knowledge, and all they're seeing is the cha-ching dollar signs of like, oh, this is like a little thing you can do on the side to make more money. We're seeing all of these online platforms coming out with research grade GLP-1s or other peptides and basically having an AI bot listen or look through your little medical intake and say, yep, you're a candidate, give you a standardized cookie cutter dose and then never check in with you again. And so what's happening with that is, number one, they're badly sourced products. So they're research grade products that you're unsure if they're actually what they say they are. There's no sterility testing. There's no endotoxin testing. So a lot of people are having adverse effects with these drugs, which then makes the FDA look at it and lump all peptides into one category saying, see, they're harmful and we don't have enough research on them. So then they ban them as a whole, when really it's these black market ones that are causing the issues. The second thing along with that is then people are going on it without any medical oversight. So they are taking way too high of a dose right out of the gate. They're losing massive amounts of weight way too quickly, which gives you that kind of like saggy skin, like bad look. It crashes your metabolism, crashes your metabolic health, as well as like makes you super, super sick, like nauseous, vomiting everywhere. And this is not a healthy way to do it. And that also gives it a bad rap of, oh, well, I don't want to go on semaglutide. I don't want to be puking all the time. When really this is just a mismanaged care while using the product. I really want to reiterate that just to really make sure that whoever you are getting this from is not only a medical provider, but a medical provider that is able to prescribe, that is with their scope of practice. Because I do feel like sometimes that gets confused. And even though you're seeing a medical provider, they don't necessarily have prescriptive authority. So that's very important. And then, trying to figure out where they're sourcing these products from. It really upsets me that even some of these really great clinics are using these research grade, badly sourced products. And that's where you don't actually know what's in them. And they're, like I said earlier, there's no sterility testing or anything like that. And that's where you're going to get some of those adverse reactions. I think if you're, as I said, semaglutiding responsibly or peptiding responsibly, and you're following all of those guidelines and again, you're not trying to be quick to the race, and you lose the weight at an appropriate rate, and you are monitoring your muscle, and you are making lifestyle changes, and you are doing all of the other things that you need, and monitoring your blood work to make sure like your electrolytes and your minerals are not getting off. These things are very safe and very effective, and they are showing a lot more benefit than just weight loss. So that's my TED Talk on that.
Now, that's a lot of really great information. So you did say that research grade products were bad, but personally, I hear research grade product. I actually think that sounds great. So what would be the correct term that patients should look for when they're searching for these programs? And also maybe do you have any questions you would recommend them asking their provider to find out more information so that they can make the right decision?
Yeah. I thought the same thing when I first started researching all of this and doing all of my deep dive is, well, research grade, like, isn't that going to be the best one? Because they're using that to do their research. But it's a very misleading title. So what you're looking for and what we want is we want compound grade products. This means that they're made at a compound pharmacy. Or you can just get like the actual brand name prescriptions. Like a lot of like if you go to your PCP, a lot of them are still just prescribing like Ozempic from like Eli Lilly, right? That just comes from the brand name pharmacy. But you want to be using this compound grade. And what that means is, number one, it's for human consumption. And it means that because it's a compound pharmacy, they are held to strict standards by the pharmacy board and the FDA. They not only have to prove authenticity of the product through certificates of analysis, so what the product is, it actually is, that the strength that it says it is actually the strength that it is. So they do testing on this to make sure. It also means that they have to follow strict sterility measures, meaning they have to send out product to make sure it's still sterile. And they also do endotoxin testing to make sure no bacteria or other toxins have gotten into the vial during the compound process. So when you receive the product, it comes in a liquid form in a sealed vial that then you draw up from. Research grade is research labs that, yes, they do research, but they are not held to pharmacy and FDA standards. So they do not have to prove authenticity. They do not have to do sterility testing or endotoxin testing. Some labs do, just to be sure that they are covering themselves, but most don't. So that means often when you're getting these, the vial will say not for human consumption.
Oh, wow.
And it comes as a lyophilized powder, which means you need to put liquid into it yourself, which now you've just compounded it. And again, now you don't know if you've just introduced any toxins or anything. The biggest thing, though, is there's a podcast that I follow, and she has a research lab that she makes these compounds from. And she does do the things that she should do, even though she's not required. And she said that she's received batches of the product where it's supposed to be, let's say, 10 milligrams of BPC, but really it's TB500. Like they just sent the wrong thing. And so this is why authenticity testing is so important, that you make sure you're getting the product you're actually buying. Recently, there's been a new wave to get around all of this research grade, because people have been trained now, and now professionals like myself know I don't want to use research grade. So now what they've come out with is physician dispensed peptides and GLP-1s. Which again, to you, doesn't that sound great? Physician dispense.
Yeah, it's like, oh, a doctor gave this. So
and it is true. Only a medical provider with prescriptive authority can get their hands on these and prescribe them. You can't just get these offline. Which, by the way, let's backtrack. Anything that you as a consumer go to a website and just purchase, that is research grade. This physician dispensed, all that means is it usually is still coming from like a research lab type of a place. But what it means is they are selling you a raw API product. So what API means is it is like when a compound pharmacy makes BPC 157, they get the raw API of BPC 157 from some bigger pharmacy, and then they compound it and mix in the bacteriostatic water that's needed. A lot of them mix in like B12 or B6 or glycine to make it their own compound. So what these places are doing is they are purchasing the raw API from these bigger pharmacies, and then they're selling that directly to you. Oftentimes, again, these are not having certificates of authentication. You don't know if it's the real product or not. A lot of times when they call me and I say, okay, well, where are you sourcing it from? They say, well, we're not able to, we don't give that information. If anybody, as a provider, if anybody ever says that to you, run far, far away. If you cannot tell me where you're getting it from and you will not provide me COAs, like, I don't want your product. Like, that's shady.
What's COA?
Certificate of Authentication.
Oh, okay. So that's just a short abbreviated form. Okay.
Yes. So again, where the risk as a provider that I want to warn you at that comes with this is that when you receive that raw API product, you now have to compound it for your patient. You have to put the bacteriostatic water in. You're now a compounder. You are not a compounder, and you are now liable, and your malpractice likely will not cover that if there's an issue.
Oh.
So the great thing about using the compound grade is if there's an issue or something happens or the product doesn't show up right or your patient has a reaction, the pharmacy is liable and they will help you through it. When you buy from these third parties or you buy these physician dispensed, I'm doing air quotes, physician dispensed products.
She is in fact doing air quotes.
They do not give a crap about you if something happens. Those are the new schemes that they're trying to kind of trick providers into thinking like, oh, no, this isn't research grade. So my next question to them is always, okay, is this a raw API physician dispense product or are you a compound pharmacy? And once they go into, oh, no, this is like physician dispense, I'm like, sorry, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in selling something like that to my patient because I don't cut corners.
Yeah.
So these are the types of things you need to look at. If you're a patient and you're going somewhere, first of all, I don't recommend, like I said, getting it from an unlicensed provider. And I don't recommend getting it from online platforms. If you are going into a clinic, I think it's still really important that you ask them those questions of what kind of product is this? Are you getting it from a compound pharmacy? And sometimes you could even ask, can I see the certificates of authentication? Can I see that this is what it says it is? Because you want to make sure they're not fooling you and that they're using these physician dispensed peptides. And it's really unfortunate that if you go to an established medical clinic that you should have to ask these questions, but unfortunately you do because people are cutting corners.
Yeah. And are they cutting these corners because it's cheaper?
Because it's cheaper.
Okay. It always has to be about money.
Yes.
Well, that's unfortunate.
And the last thing you want to do is, that's the thing, is it's cheaper for them, but they're still charging the same price
right
to you. And now if you're getting a peptide that you're still paying hundreds of dollars for and it's not even the real thing or it's not working or you're going to get some adverse effect, that's a waste of your money.
Yeah. Earlier you were saying a raw API product. What does API stand for?
API stands for active pharmaceutical ingredient. So again, that's just like the raw material that then compounders or other pharmacies can take and they can mix in other things, hence why it's called compounding, to make it like a version of their own. So that's how compound pharmacies are making these semaglutides available without you having to get the brand name prescriptive one like Ozempic or something like that. Is because they make it their own by usually, as I said earlier, adding in like B12 or B6 or glycine.
All right. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And thank you for clarifying all of the different types of products.
One thing I'll mention too, in case people are, really like researched into this, is the FDA recently released something called a green list. So it's a list of pharmacies that provide the APIs that they are approving. They've given them their green seal of like, yep, they're great. So that's the other problem with these physician dispensed peptides is they're getting this API from a different pharmacy, but oftentimes they're not getting it from these green listed pharmacies. They're getting it from pharmacies overseas or from like cheap back end pharmacies.
Yeah.
So that's another important thing to mention is that's why like there should be no reason why you can't tell me what pharmacy you're getting it from, because if you're not telling me, it's probably because you're not on the green list.
Yeah, that is so shady that they would not disclose that information.
Yeah.
Honestly, also just going back to what you're saying about people buying this stuff online, I think that's so wild to me because you're injecting these products into your body.
Yeah.
And if they can't provide proof of where it's coming from or what exactly it is, that's so scary.
Yeah. I think it's really laughable too. Like, all the years I've been in aesthetics, it's the one profession that like people are actually actively rude to me, like out in public. I'll be at like a barbecue and I'll start like talking about what I do, and right to my face, people will be like, oh, I would never put something like that in my body. Like I'm aging gracefully. Like they literally kick my profession down.
Yeah.
And I think it's so funny because I'm like, there's all these people who are like, oh my God, I would never inject Botox. But then you're going and getting these black market peptides from a bro at the gym and injecting them into your body.
Yeah.
And I just think it's funny. Like,
yeah.
but I really think it's because the general consumer, they don't know. They don't know the dangers of this. They don't know that this is not the normal route to take. And they don't know that peptides are drugs. They are prescriptive. I think they just think that they're a supplement. They're not a supplement.
Yeah, I know. I think that's like the thing that people often forget even about med spas is that it stands for medical spa.
Yeah.
You know, like these are all prescriptive drugs and people just, you know, like you said, laugh at it or see it as like a nail salon.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Or a hair salon even. It's very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, guys, I think we're going to break up this Q&A into 2 sections as we didn't realize how long we actually recorded for. We were just having way too much fun. But we hope you enjoyed our long combo about the definition of wellness, as well as lots of information on peptides. Stay tuned for next week's episode where we'll jump into part 2. The information shared on this podcast is for educational purposes only. It reflects clinical experience and opinion and is not intended to serve as a diagnosis, treatment plan, or medical advice. As always, please consult with a qualified healthcare provider before making any changes to your health, medications, or treatment plan. If you want to be a part of our community, make sure to follow us on Instagram at theretreat.wellness and theretreat.aesthetics. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with me today, and until next time.